Good afternoon. Welcome to this informational webinar for the WIC Special Project Innovation Grant RFA, Request for Applications. My name is Heather Schaefer. I'm the Deputy Director of the Policy Shop at the Council of State Governments. We are very excited to be with you today to share more information about this RFA that will give states the opportunity to receive funding for special innovation projects to support WIC programs. Couple informational items as we go. We have at the end of this webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session. The best way to ask your questions throughout this webinar is through a question box feature that is part of the GoToWebinar software. So you should see an informational box that's associated with the GoToWebinar functionality that provides a place for you to submit questions. We are going to, for the most part, reserve time at the end for answering questions. If there are technical questions around any issues around hearing presenters, or using webinar, you can also put those in the question box. Or if you have questions to clarify something that was said, those types of questions we'll try and answer as we go. We want to make sure that the information that's presented here is clear and helpful to you as it relates to the RFA. So again, questions, please submit those in the question box that is part of GoToWebinar. We will answer clarification and technical questions as we go, but questions around RFA content, we will reserve time at the end to answer questions, and then any questions that we don't get to within our set time frame for this webinar will also be posted to our website so that you have webinar question and answers available to you in written form. So on that note, the slide that you are seeing provides the key information that you need for your one-stop shop on any and all questions related to the RFA for the WIC Special Project Innovation Grants. So the website at the top, that is your one-stop shop. That's where the RFA is posted. That's where you can also get the contact information for the folks at the Council of State Governments who will be assisting you throughout this process, as well as where we will post questions and answers both following the webinar and throughout the procurement process. So please save that website. That will be very helpful to you throughout this process. The funding opportunity page, the link, the second link that you see there is just a sub-page within that website. So again, that website's your one-stop shop, and then the email also posted on that website is how you can contact the Council of State Governments for any and all questions that you have or support that you need as you develop your application. So the agenda for today, we'll give you a brief overview about this grant opportunity and also how it differs from previous similar grant opportunities that some of you may be familiar with. We'll give you an overview of the projects. We're also going to talk about certification enhancement opportunities. So what it looks like to enhance the certification process. We'll talk about technical assistance opportunities. So all of this will go in line with the RFA. So if you are following along in the actual RFA document, I think that'll be helpful. We'll refer to that throughout this presentation. Information that is contained in this presentation is also contained in that RFA, and we do want to make sure we're focusing our time today on just key highlights and key pieces of information that we want to make sure that you have, as well as giving some examples for potential project ideas. When we get into technical assistance opportunities, I do want to emphasize something that's different about this RFA than perhaps other RFA processes that you're involved in is CSG is not only here to answer questions directly related to the RFA, but we are also here to help you develop strong application responses, make sure that you've got the information that you need in order to ease the process for providing a successful application and to support you in development of ideas as well as other key components of the application. And again, we'll also wrap up with a Q&A session at the end. So one thing to highlight about how this grant opportunity differs from past WIC Special Project grant opportunities is that FNS has previously directly distributed grants to the states. This one is different because FNS has dispersed funds to the Council of State Governments. We will then provide grants directly to the states or the consortium of applicants if applicants choose to apply as a consortium. So the funds will be distributed by the Council of State Governments. Part of the reason for this change is also to ensure that the Council of State Governments, again, can provide an extra layer of support to you. One, as you develop your application, but then for the successful grantees, we will be available throughout the process of implementing the special project grants to provide support around project needs as well as some of the evaluation components. We are here not just to be a procurement arm, but to be of assistance to you to make these grants more accessible to all WIC agencies across the country. I will also mention we've got a great partner in the Gretchen Swanson Center for Nutrition. Gretchen Swanson is working very closely with CSG. They are a very established and highly skilled group of practitioners who are very familiar with WIC processes and in evaluation activities for policy programs like WIC. And so the Gretchen Swanson Center is going to be a great resource that's going to be available to you as you work on developing components of your application, as well as throughout the implementation. They will serve a role in helping to support you through that process and doing analysis across grantees so that we make sure to get strong results and evaluations around the effectiveness of your innovative projects. So I think on this one, I mostly touched on the content on this slide, but one thing that we will go over is the timeline for the application. The application window is aimed at giving you ample time to access the technical assistance and resources that are available through CSG and Gretchen Swanson. Okay. And I will also just kind of wrap up for those of you who we have not directly worked with before. The Council of State Governments, we are a nonprofit. We serve all 3 branches of state government, and we're a membership association. So all state leaders elected and appointed across the country, so that's over 12,000 individuals are our members, and we exist to support the states through policy work and opportunities like this one where we can provide resources and supports to state workers like yourself who are implementing important programs for our communities. Next, I'm going to kick it to Katie from the Gretchen Swanson Center to tell you a little more.
All right. Well, thanks, Heather. Hello, everyone. Like she mentioned, my name is Katie Stern, and I'm a senior project manager at the Gretchen Swanson Center for Nutrition. I'm also one of the team members from our organization who are involved in this WSPI grant opportunity. GSCN is a national nonprofit research center based in Omaha that primarily focuses on conducting and facilitating public health nutrition evaluation and research projects. As was mentioned on a prior slide, unlike past WSPI grant opportunities, GSCN has been contracted to provide evaluation expertise on this round of projects. Next slide. To date, GSCN has assisted CSG and FNS in the development of the WSPI RFA and will be at the ready to field questions pertaining to the evaluation section of the RFA as agencies complete their proposals. Post-award, GSCN will be working with grantees in the many phases of the evaluation process, from planning to implementation to interpretation of results in each milestone along the way. Back to Council of State Governments.
All right, thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Asia Curto. I'm also with the Council of State Governments, and I'm part of the team at CSG that will be working with this WSPI project. So we wanted to start out with an overview of the project, like Heather mentioned. The purpose of the WSPI grant is to fund projects that are led by WIC agencies, be they state, local, tribal, that administer the WIC program. And the grants are focused on the certification piece of the WIC program. So the projects that will be proposed in response to this grant opportunity should seek to implement and evaluate interventions that will improve customer service and overall improve the WIC certification process. Eligibility. So applicants for this grant opportunity must be either a WIC state agency, a local agency, or a consortium of WIC agencies. And to clarify, tribal agencies are also considered under the umbrella of WIC state agencies. Consortiums of agencies that are applying will need to provide us with documentation that all consortium members are in agreement, that their roles and responsibilities have been laid out explicitly, and get all of that to us with your application. And interested local agencies will need to acquire a letter of support from their state agency, just telling us that the state agency is aware of the project proposal and supports the application. For the grants, up to $6 million is available in total, and applicants may request a maximum of $2 million per project. There is no minimum award amount, so whatever fits your project best, just be mindful of that $2 million maximum per project. And the Council of State Governments and FNS at USDA intend to fund multiple projects through this opportunity. So we're excited to see what you all send us. A brief timeline of the project. So you will find on page 6 of the RFA that we have requested a letter of intent from applicants. This is not mandatory, but gives us an opportunity to see how many interested applicants we have and what kind of projects are being considered for the opportunity to better inform our technical assistance process. So those letters of intent are due on November 30th, 2020. The formal application deadline will be 5 p.m. Eastern Time on January 21st, 2021. And as Heather mentioned before, we've given this particular window for the application so that you all have access to us to answer any questions that you might have while you are developing your project proposal. Grant awards will be announced on March 1st, 2021. and the project period will go until June 31st, 2022. One thing that we want everyone to be mindful when developing their project proposals is the definition of innovation that's included on page 5 of the RFA and page 7 of the fillable application form. For the purpose of this grant, innovation is defined as being at least one of the following. So a project that is new to the WIC state agency, or a project that has never been funded by FNS, a project that has not yet been evaluated for impact on WIC certification and customer service measures, or a project that will substantially improve upon an existing strategy or adapt it for a WIC agency of differing size, demographic context, and clientele. If you have any questions about that definition of innovation, feel free to add them to the question box or send them through email to the email address that was shown at the beginning of the presentation and is also in the description for this webinar. In addition to the definition of innovation, we wanted to highlight some of the features that successful proposals will have. So successful project proposals will include a goal for improving customer service in the certification process, incorporate one or more of the points of the definition of innovation described in the previous slide, a description of measurable results, and will contain fully transparent program operations so that project activities can be scaled or transferred to other agencies. And I want to highlight this last one. It's a very important goal of this funding opportunity, that interventions and project ideas that are proposed and eventually funded are those that can be adapted by other agencies across the country. So with that overview out of the way, we will briefly go over the certification enhancement opportunities that are included in the RFA. CSG and GSCN worked to identify existing interventions and literature around certification processes across WIC agencies and worked closely with FNS to develop these potential project ideas that you all as applicants are welcome to either adopt and adapt to your own needs or use as inspiration while developing your own proposals. The first one is adopting policies, practices, and/or technologies that enable participants to initiate and complete certification. So an example of that would be online appointment request systems, use of electronic document submission, and other technological tools that can enhance the WIC certification process. The second certification enhancement opportunity is to enhance capacity to use digital technology for appointment reminders and notifications of incomplete certifications. So examples of this would be the WIC mobile apps that some states are already utilizing, targeted text messaging systems to potential and/or existing WIC clients. And to clarify on the incomplete certification, what we mean by this is those who have temporary certifications and using technology to remind them and help those clients get to full certification instead of just temporary. So there have been a few different examples of these systems out in the literature. One example is in 2017, a local WIC agency built an online appointment request system and expanded use of electronic documents to complete certification. Another example is that also in 2017, a local WIC agency purchased software to contact applicants and current WIC participants prior to their certification appointments and encourage them to submit required information and documents via the electronic system. It's estimated that this system decreased the duration of certification appointments by about 7 minutes. For the second enhancement opportunity, some examples, as I mentioned before, WIC mobile apps can provide resources for current WIC participants and program applicants, such as maps to local offices and WIC clinics, and targeted text messaging and reminders. In 2014, a targeted text message system was implemented by a state Department of Health to keep participants engaged with WIC, and they found that the WIC agencies participating in this project experienced higher retention rates, which suggests that these tools can be effectively extended for enrollment. Our third certification enhancement opportunity is to develop and implement an online WIC referral portal for programs that establish adjunctive income eligibility for WIC. So for example, built-in management information system checks and direct use of Medicaid portals. So a real-life example of this, a state WIC agency has built a check for adjunctive eligibility into its MIS system, and this allows the staff to check on participation in Medicaid, SNAP, and/or cash assistance with a simple click instead of going through longer channels to verify participation in these adjunctive eligibility programs. Another example is that previously a district health department obtained approval from their state Medicaid program, with which more than 80% of the agency's participants are enrolled, to use the Medicaid portal directly, which allowed WIC staff to preemptively check applicants' Medicaid status and record their Medicaid number to check for adjunctive eligibility. So different states have different systems in terms of how Medicaid and WIC are managed through state agencies, but for those that have organizational structures that allow for this, that could be another consideration. And then our fourth opportunity is very open-ended, agency-led strategies to improve the certification process that are not captured by our other potential enhancement opportunities 1 through 3. So we want to make sure that all applicants know that we encourage you to explore certification enhancement opportunities beyond these examples. You are not by any means required to pick one of the 3 opportunities that we have presented for your application. We encourage you to think creatively and look at what other options there are for improving certification at your clinic. I think I've covered that. We do want to make sure that you all know that other ideas that you all come up with for project proposals still need to follow all of the guidelines and criteria in the RFA, and especially make sure that they all still comply with existing WIC regulations. Some specific considerations for proposals that are not captured by enhancement opportunities 1 through 3. How does the project aim to improve customer service in the certification process? Does it have measurable results and fully transparent program operations? Can it be successfully scaled or transferred to other agencies? And of course, as we mentioned before, please consider how your proposed project meets the definition of innovation that we have gone over in this presentation, and that can be found in the RFA and fillable application form. So Heather earlier mentioned that there are multiple technical assistance opportunities available to interested applicants, so I'm going to take a moment to go over those. CSG and GSCN are available for technical assistance for applicants while you propose and develop your applications and project ideas, and then for eventual grantees throughout implementation and evaluation to address program needs as they come up. So for pre-award technical assistance, interested applicants can reach out to us through the contact information we've provided earlier in the slides, on our website, and in the description of this webinar for application instructions, application attachment instructions, staff training questions as part of your project idea proposal, data collection and analysis as you plan out your evaluation plan for your proposed project, and any other issues that arise throughout the course of proposal development. Since all applicants are equally, should have equal access to our technical assistance, we want to make sure that everyone who is looking at applying for this funding opportunity has the same information. We will be posting a summary of all of our questions and answers that we receive, either through this webinar or through direct contact through our contact information on our project website, web.csg.org/WIC. All posted questions will remain anonymous, but will be answered fully by our team. And our goal is to answer all of them directly and post a response to the website in less than 10 business days. So if you do submit a question to us for technical assistance, we will respond to you directly so you know that we received your question, as we'll also post the question and full answer on our website for others to access. So as you all work on developing your proposals, make sure you're checking our questions section on the website in case anything comes up. I'll go over a brief timeline of our post-award technical assistance for those who receive funding through this opportunity. We'll have a project kickoff meeting in March 2021, individualized implementation and evaluation plan support in March through April of 2021, and quarterly conference calls with CSG, GSCN, and other project grantees quarterly during the project timeline. A quick overview of required grantee activities that you should consider when determining if you want to pursue this funding opportunity. Throughout the project, grantees will be required to attend a post-award project kickoff meeting with CSG, GSCN, and FNS. And I will add here that an in-person meeting will occur as travel is allowed given the ongoing COVID-19 situation. After that, grantees will need to participate in quarterly grantee conference calls, as mentioned on the previous slide, complete quarterly progress and financial reports, complete a final report within 2 months of the end of the project, and attend a closeout session at FNS headquarters in Alexandria to present final project outcomes.
All right, I'm going to fly through this slide. It is outlined in section 6 of your RFA if you're following along or would like to reference it. All grantees that receive funding are expected to plan and execute an evaluation of their proposed projects. Evaluation should consider overall effectiveness of projects as well as implementation factors, or in other words, both outcome and process evaluations. Assistance from GSCN in building and implementing a rigorous evaluation will begin at the aforementioned, hopefully in-person meeting and carry on throughout the grant program through both proactive and reactive TA opportunities that may occur via any format, really. In addition to evaluation of your own teams or agencies' activities, each funded grantee will agree to participate in an overarching evaluation. This is something that we at GSCN will be doing, but we are asking that you agree to make yourself available to assist us. This evaluation is key to understanding process and implementation factors that impact projects along the way. Even though each agency will be doing their own project evaluation, some shared lessons learned and an understanding of the barriers each grantee faces is useful information for the sustainability and possible scalability of these projects. Back to you, Asia.
Thank you, Katie. So we'll briefly go over the application instructions here, just so you all have a chance to go over them and pose any questions that might come up as we look through them in the question box, as Heather mentioned before. Interested applicants for this opportunity will need to download and complete the application form, which can be found on our funding opportunity page on the program website. All applications need to be prepared in the format outlined and submitted via email to wic@csg.org with the subject line WIC Special Project Innovation Application to make sure that your application is received. A reminder that the deadline for applications is 5 p.m. Eastern Time on January 31st, 2021. No late applications will be accepted and incomplete applications will not be considered. Going back to the letter of intent that we mentioned briefly before, we highly encourage you to submit a non-binding letter of intent before submission of the full application. Those are due at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on November 30th. And again, those are to help CSG and GSCN gauge how many interested applicants they are and to better tailor our technical assistance. So the application form that is found on our project website is divided into the following sections: the summary, project plan, evaluation requirements, project management plan, the budget narrative, and the attachments. And I'll note here, all applicants should know that the program budget form is a separate fillable form included in the attachment section. So while this overview only lists the budget narrative, we are asking for a budget narrative as well as a fillable budget form. And the sections on both forms correspond to each other. Section 1 is the summary, which is where you will provide information on which enhancement opportunity you have selected, either one of the 3 that we have put forward for your consideration or a different project that you all have come up with on your own. The total requested budget, what kind of applicant you are, which would be state, local, agency, and the contact information for the applicant. I'll note again that for applicants applying as a consortium, you'll need to designate one staff member from your collective agencies to be the liaison between the consortium and our CSG team. The name of that liaison will be listed as the primary staff contact on the application under agency contact information. Section 2 is the project plan. It is comprised of a statement of need, what gap or need you are addressing with your proposed project, project design, considerations for new technologies. This is where you'll make note of any technological tools you are incorporating into your project proposal, what their role is in the project. A description of innovation, reiterating how your project meets the definition that we've set forth in the RFA. Project transferability, meaning how well it can be scaled or transferred to another agency, and confirmation of project compliance with existing federal WIC regulations. And I'll kick it over to Katie at GSCN again to go over the evaluation requirements.
All right, let's spend a couple slides on this. Section 3 of that fillable form is dedicated to evaluation requirements. This section of your proposal is worth 10 points to the reviewers. This section is reliant on the application providing sufficient descriptions of capacity to carry out the evaluation and ideas you have on what you would like to measure. It is important that I note to you now that applicants will not be scored on their, quote, correct answers to these prompts. Instead, we are looking for completeness and thorough descriptions. Next slide. The first section is on data collection and analysis capacity. A helpful way to think about these questions is that it allows the reviewers to understand the capacity of each applicant to complete a robust evaluation. If your agency uses an external evaluator, it is still okay to use that person. Just tell us a little bit about that. If your agency, for example, has internal help, please also explain that. And if you need help with everything, hey, that's okay. We want to know. Just explain what you can do in the areas where you think you'll need a little more assistance. As previously mentioned, grantees will be asked to fulfill a robust evaluation of their projects, focusing both on the process and outcome evaluations. The next section of the fillable form provides an opportunity for applicants to explain what they envision for their evaluations. If funded, grantees will not be held to what they outlined in their applications, but will work with us at GSCN to describe if what they had in mind is still a best fit, or if there are other options. This section asks applicants to provide descriptions of 3 main types of outcomes by reflecting on the activities that they outline in their work plans. These outcomes are process and short-term outcomes, implementation or intermediate outcomes, and finally, impacts or long-term outcomes. Although GSCN will be spending time working on the details, based on your project idea and goals, we expect that you can tell us what outcome you wish to target. You may also have really good ideas about some process or short-term outcomes. The most important thing here is that these outcomes align with your main project goals. Also, I want to reiterate that these are not set in stone. And at this time, you do not have to know all the specific details, such as how you'll measure these or anything else. If funded, we will be working on these details together. Next slide. The next prompt asks the applicant to describe anticipated challenges. All projects face challenges. This could be administrative, such as getting buy-in from your staff. It could be data related, like accessing data in MIS or other systems. Or it could be about participants themselves, such as having no-shows or low enrollment. Based on your project idea, the understanding you have of your own agency and what you're trying to implement, please explain anticipated barriers or challenges here. And finally, the last section is in regard to Institutional Review Board, or IRB. Use this section to let the reviewers know if you anticipate submitting an IRB protocol, and if so, through what review board. I also want to note that GSCN is here to help you facilitate these connections, and we also have our own affiliate that can be used for WSPI grant projects. Back to you, Asia.
Thank you. The next section is section 4, the project management plan. This section is comprised of the program management description, how you plan to manage program implementation if you receive funding, staffing needs for the project, be it moving existing staff members from your agency to work on the project or external hiring needs, and then a list of program assurances. Section 5 is the budget narrative, which, as I noted before, of course, will correspond to the fillable budget form included in the attachment section. The budget narrative includes key consideration for allowability of costs and sections for the amount requested and description of what the funding will cover for personnel, fringe benefits, travel, equipment, supplies, contractual, other, and indirect costs. Section 6 will be attachments, and the required attachments for this application are the project work plan, the budget form, your state agency letter of support if you are a local agency, the state agency consortium letter of support if applicable. That would be for agencies applying as a consortium. Key project partners letter of support, again, if applicable for consortium applicants, key staff resumes, and any current memorandums of understanding, again, if applicable, if such MOUs exist for your agency. I do want to pause here briefly and emphasize that staff resumes are a very important piece of the attachment section that have a tendency to be overlooked in grant applications sometimes. It's very important to give us an idea of your agency's ability to implement the project that's proposed. So make sure that those are included in your application. The project work plan is the first attachment. We've provided a template that you can access on the project website and is linked directly from the RFA. The work plan should include each goal and activity proposed in the Section 2 project plan of the fillable form, and the individual/entity responsible for that activity and the anticipated end date for completing each activity. The project work plan should also include timing of technical and financial reporting, as well as major program milestones and deliverables, including the project kickoff meeting, the quarterly progress reports, the final report, and the quarterly conference calls, as previously mentioned in this webinar. The budget form. All applicants are required to submit a budget form that will detail all costs associated with the proposed project. And expenses in this form should align to the expenses outlined in the budget narrative. And I'll note again that CSG has provided a fillable budget form for applicants to use, and that is available on our project website. The state agency letter of support. So for applicants other than state agencies, a letter of support from the state agency will be required for applications. This must include the state agency's agreement to provide any data needed for program implementation and evaluation, if applicable to your proposed project. We provided a sample state agency letter of support for your reference that you can use when getting this letter from your state agency. And again, I'll note this is just to make sure that the state agency is aware of all projects proposed by local agencies and is on board with supporting those proposed projects. The state agency consortium letter of support is required for applicants applying jointly as a consortium, and just outlines that all consortium members agree to participate in the consortium, and outlines each agency's role in the project plan and commitment to collaborate with CSG, GSCN, and the other consortium members. We've also provided a sample of the state agency consortium letter on the website for to be a resource for you. Key project partners letter of support. For those who are or are not applying as a consortium, if you plan to include any external partners as part of your project proposal, please obtain a letter of support from those organizations and include it with your application, so that we know that the organizations you name in your proposal are aware of and on board with the proposed project. We have also provided a sample letter for the letter of support that you can access on the website. And again, just to note, key staff resumes as well as external hiring plans are required as attachments for this opportunity. And just wanted to note again the importance of these documents for illustrating your ability to implement the project and to consider external staffing needs required for your agency. Current memorandums of understanding. If your agency already has a memorandum of understanding with another WIC agency, a state agency, another state government department that you work closely with, anything that would apply to the activities proposed in your project, please make sure you include those as attachments in your application so that we know where relationships and collaborations are already existing for your proposed project. Right. Finally, applications will be reviewed and scored by a panel of reviewers. The panel will include CSG staff members, and CSG will submit summaries of all applications to FNS and discuss top applications with the FNS team. I do want to clarify that while CSG will be a key participant in reviewing applications and summarizing applications, all final selection decisions for funding will come from FNS, the Food and Nutrition Service at the USDA. FNS reserves the right to accept the review panel's recommendation or to select an awardee out of order to meet agency priorities, geographical representation, or project diversity. So just to underscore that all final decisions will come from FNS. All right. With the application and RFA overview out of the way, we are now accepting questions. I know we've had a few come in through the chat box, but I'll give people a minute to type in any additional questions and I'll start. We've gotten a clarifying question for the application deadline. The application deadline will be January 31st, 2021. Apologies if the slide had that backwards.
Thank you for your questions. We are continuing to receive questions. Please know that we will answer in brevity to the extent we can during this conversation. Some of the questions will also be best answered through a written response. All questions will be posted to our website with answers in the coming days. So all questions and answers will be made available to you. And also as a reminder, you are always welcome to send questions to wic@csg.org throughout this process. So the first question that we received, will FNS rules regarding the APD process outlined in Handbook 901 apply to this project? A good question. We'll definitely answer that one in more detail in writing. The general answer is the RFA as posted will be the lead governing document for this. The process will be administered by the Council of State Governments and not FNS. However, clearly the RFA says that you must be in compliance with all existing FNS policies for WIC. So where the Handbook 901 talks about allowable cost, things related to existing WIC processes, all of those will apply. Again, we'll provide a more detailed answer related to this. And if you have any specific questions related to something in Handbook 901, I'm happy to answer that, but there's not an APD required. However, many of the elements that are in that handbook are related to things that we are asking for in this, and elements in the handbook not only represent many of the existing WIC policies, but also best practices. The next question, when we send the letter of intent, will you then respond and ask for a full application or not? So all applicants are required to submit a full application by January 31st, 2021. The letter of intent is strongly encouraged. It provides helpful information to us as well as FNS on awareness, understanding, and interest in the program that helps inform our technical assistance. If an agency does not submit a letter of intent, that does not disqualify you from providing a full application. However, a full application is required by all applicants.
And I will jump in and add to that in case this is what the question was getting at. If you submit a letter of intent, you do not need to wait for us to contact you to ask for a full application. We will not do that. We will confirm that we received your letter of intent, but we will not initiate you sending in your application. So after you send in your LOI, just proceed and submit your application by the deadline as you would normally.
Great, thank you.
The next question that we received is a specific resume format required, and is the NIH BioSketch format acceptable? We are not requiring a specific resume format for this opportunity. We just ask that they be clear and concise as resumes should be. And the NIH BioSketch format, I am personally not familiar with this one. Heather, if you are, feel free to jump in. We just want to make sure that whatever format it is has the standard resume sections with experience, work experience, education experience, name,
Correct.
contact information.
Correct. And when we post the Q&A related to this question, we'll indicate if there are specific items that are required in the RFA but may not be captured in that NIH BioSketch format. Make sure that that is clear.
The next question that we received was, how does the pandemic factor into this work? That is, if we continue with waivers for mostly remote services, we may not be back to quote, normal until a date to be determined. And how we deliver services pre-vaccine and hopefully control of the pandemic versus after could be quite different. It's a great question. So a note about COVID-19 and WIC waivers that have been issued. Some states have developed mechanisms to accept documents electronically, particularly in light of COVID-19 impacts. And these mechanisms could be used to simplify the certification process and shorten in-person appointments. Thus, you might want to include them on your project proposals. All proposed projects for this funding opportunity must comply with the WIC federal regulations, not including the waivers, because we don't know now how long things will last and how long waivers will be extended. It's not feasible to assume that the WIC waivers will be fully extended throughout the entire project timeline of this opportunity. So all proposed projects need to comply with federal WIC regulations. If you have any follow-up questions around COVID waivers, please send them to us in writing at the email address that we've provided.
An additional question received, is this recording of this webinar and the slides, will it be available on the website? The answer is yes.
Our next question is a contracted project management organization considered a key partner? And if so, do we need to provide a support letter? Heather, I will let you answer this question.
So the answer is, again, we'll provide more detail in writing, but it depends on the roles and responsibilities of that organization. It is certainly always better to err on the side of having a support letter. However, once you have a better idea of the specific roles and responsibilities of a contracted project management organization, that's a great question to reach out to us, and we can provide additional guidance on whether they qualify as a key partner based on the specific roles and responsibilities that they would be playing.
Another question we've received is there a match requirement on this funding? No, there is no match requirement for this funding opportunity. Another question we have received is, in my state, we have clients who live in remote areas and cannot always get to their appointments. Would video conferencing be consistent with your definition of innovative? This issue causes missed appointments and should improve certification rates and decrease missed appointments. The short answer to that question is use of video conferencing could be considered for project proposals as long as the use of that technology is consistent with existing WIC regulations. And as you develop your project proposal, as we've mentioned, you can reach out to us with more details on your ideas around this so we can help you determine if that idea does in fact comply with WIC regulations.
I would say with many project ideas similar to that one, there are components that might not meet the definition of innovation, but there are many opportunities and ways to think about how other related activities can meet the definition of innovation and aim to address the underlying issues that you are focused on solving. So that is a great question to reach out for further technical assistance throughout this process as you think further about some of the more underlying details around that.
Absolutely.
And we are coming up on the end of our time. There are a number of questions that we did not get to, but please rest assured that we will answer those fully in writing. And again, as always, we are available via the website and web address that were provided earlier in these slides. We will also be available for phone calls throughout. However, as stated, we are going to be very mindful to make sure that any and all technical assistance that is provided is made available to all applicants. So we will continuously be posting FAQs and Q&As to our website so that all applicants have access to the TA that we provide.
Right. And with that, we thank you all for joining us today. Please reach out to us with any questions you have as you develop your proposals. We look forward to seeing what you all send us. Thank you all so much.